והנפש השנית בישראל is חלק אלוקא ממעל ממש. As we explained this in length in the earlier classes, the difference between being something Hashem does or part of what Hashem is, the allegory from speech and the air. So we discussed it at length, and we won't go over it. The conclusion of the first portion of the chapter was that the Jewish soul, the second soul, is part of what is part of the matter of reality, if you would, of the material of reality, and which is Hashem, and it would be feasible that therefore the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in each individual soul would be similar. It would all be part, like a reflection of Hashem's unity. So how come, the Alter Rebbe asked, how come the souls differ from each other so much? And that's what we started to answer last week, if you recall. And we said a few allegories and a few different layers of how to look at it. And the main allegory is, the allegory he mentions here explicitly, is like a child, like giving birth. A piece, again, why is this allegory so good? Because it reflects all the elements of what we're trying to explain. The reason it reflects all the elements of what we're trying to explain is because the existence of birth in reality is a reflection of how Hashem created the world. That's why this is why, I mean, the allegory itself is a coarsening, like we like saying, like, a manifestation of this concept. So, what is a child? A child is where you take, even physically, a manifested piece of yourself. It starts in your mind like a seed, and again, you can also that it's a it doesn't start physical. It starts like, like you'd say, a child's personality traits. It's not just physical.
Mhm.
Like in the language of Kabbalah, so your personality coarsens, becomes coarse, and until it becomes a physical material drop, a physical material, again, very seminal seed in the back of your brain, and then it goes through the spine. This is the description of Kabbalah, until it inseminates, and then it develops for another 9 months, and then you get a child. So what the child is a manifestation of an aspect of his parents' being, not just his parents' physical being, also their self, their personality. This is, again, very simple to see this in reality, that a child is not only, you don't only get the color of your eyes from your parents, you get who you are, who your being is your parents. Now, what is this allegory looking to say? That even though every aspect of the child is interincluded in the seminal seed, still there, and not only is it interincluded there, it's not it the way every aspect, like the fingernails, that's the example he brings here, or the mind itself of the child, all the child's different limbs and different aspects, different traits are all interincluded within the seminal state of the seed. But that's not to say that in the seed there are eyes and ears and nose. No, this, again, everything there it's there, but it's all one there. It's all one thing, like what you'd call a DNA pattern. Everything coexists there, but it coexists there as a unity. It doesn't coexist there in a manifested form. So if you put a seed under a microscope, you're not going to see a little baby. You're not going to see anything. You're just going to see, again, a seminal form. But that seminal form includes all the details of the baby. Not only does it include all the details of the baby, it includes only the details of that specific baby. Again, it's not a stripped infinity. it's a specified infinity. That's the phrase. Because on the one hand, there's like infinite details in that seminal drop, but it's only a certain infinity, because you're not going to get somebody else. You're only going to get that one person out of that drop. But again, there's within that finitude, there's an infinity. So all of the infinity of details of who I am were all interclosed in the seminal drop. But still, only I could come of it. No one else could come of it. So it's a finitude. It's something finite, but it's a finitized infinity. It's like a piece. That's the phrase, a piece of infinity. Now, after he said that allegory, we had mentioned a couple of other allegories that he's again. What is he allegorizing? He's allegorizing all the souls to a person. And then he says that some souls are the mind, some souls are the hand, some people, some Jews, some specific Jews we all stem from the same seminal point. And in that seminal point, we're all one completely. Again, like in the example, in the allegory, there's no different root for the hand or for the ear. It all exists there as one thing. But nonetheless, in the process of going through the worlds, like the womb, how you take the process of development into reality. That's the topic we discussed last week. In general, there are two phrases in Kabbalah of how you go through a process. Hitlapshut v'ma'avar, if you recall. That you're either engarmented, traumatized by every stage you go through, and then every stage you go through adds a layer, adds a shade to your personality. You become it, or you're not fazed by it. And you maintain your more seminal awareness. And these are all things we explained last week, if you all recall. So again, this chapter here is, maybe it's the way we explained it, now that I'm trying to briefly go over things. So I realized that we tried to depict a certain concept, and we used a variety of examples, and we put them all together. So maybe it's a little bit of a mess we made, I don't know if, and we do this, we always want at the end to be able to depict an idea and to strip it of all the examples and context and have it in our mind, something that we grasp in our minds. So this time I see that in chapter 2, really, in order to depict one idea, we used many different allegories and we messed them all together, so each one depicting a different aspect of the concept. So I hope everybody has it organized in their mind. So we spoke about various different things. We spoke about, again, how you go through processes, and we brought all sorts of psychological examples from somebody going into the army or something. And that was all just to depict the difference. Again, that was like to depict the difference of how each aspect of the seminal seed reacts to the experience of the womb of the worlds. And that, again, to explain why from the very same genetic code, the very same seminal state, come ears and feet and fingernails and mind in the child. Yeah. Is that for me? I thought you had a question, sorry. Anyway, so again, so that in the allegory, that's to explain why there are so many different personalities, so many different souls. And another thing we said with those structures is that this entire concept can be then thrown on three different categories of creation. Knemida. The phrase is knemida in Hebrew. I don't know how to say that in English.
What is it?
Knemida means that you can take it in different proportions. I could take this entire concept in the proportion of one individual and see how within my individual soul there are higher aspects and lower aspects. I could take it in the proportion of a generation. How in our day and age right now, there are people who are more in the mind, the Einei Ha'edah, the eyes of the congregation, and there are people who are the heels of the congregation. So again, you could take this concept and project it proportionally on a person, on a generation, or you could project it on the entire span of the Jewish history, where our earlier generations, our forefathers were the mind and the head of the people, and we are the ikvet of the Mashiach, the heels of the people. So again, each one of these proportions is true, just like in the allegories. You could see a grandfather and all of his offspring as being just again a manifestation of details from one person, or you could see how each one of his offsprings is himself an entire person with different layers. Or you could just take one of the generations of offspring and see how within that generation there's someone who's more manifesting the mind and more manifesting the feet. So each proportion is true. Maybe we'll have what to say about that in the continuation. Why did I go over this? Also to rehearse what we're saying, and also to focus back to the main allegory that he's mentioning here. After all of the allegories we said, what's mentioned here is this very physical example of a seminal drop developing into a child. That's the basic allegory he's using. And it itself, like we just said, can then be projected in very different proportions. So since that's the allegory he said, and this is the allegory that's very commonly mentioned in the Torah. The Torah also refers to all the Jewish people as offspring. We're all children of Hashem. Banim atem l'Hashem Elokechem. B'ni Tanya yom yildicha. These are all, like all the allegories of the Alter Rebbe, these are all allegories that the Torah itself says, because these phenomena in reality are all coming into existence as a manifestation of the essential way creation was created. And so that there are this allegory appears in such a context of offspring is because the reality of there being people and their offspring is itself a manifestation of this spiritual entity. So the allegory reflects what it's allegorizing perfectly, because it actually is a manifestation of that very thing, like any good allegory in Chassidut. So why am I focusing back onto this allegory? Because Miriam asked about the brackets. So the brackets are referring directly to that physical allegory. And after he explained that, then again, as he explained it, he said, right before the brackets, he quoted from the Gemara in Masechet Nida, that the Gemara says, again, after he explained the concept that every limb, every aspect of the baby, of the child, of the developed child, has all developed from the very same seminal seed. And he quotes the Gemara that says that even the gidim, which is
veins, sinews, veins.
So it's very, very oftenly translated as veins, the blood vessels. But literally gidim, I don't know how to say that in English. It means the pieces of skin, not really, it's not skin, the pieces of what connects the muscle to the bone, like a stringy, what's the word for, I don't know what it's called in English. Was that?
Sinews?
Maybe.
Like sinews?
I don't know what's in use. I don't know the word for that. Gidim, that's what gidim usually, like gid hanasheh. Like gid hanasheh in the Torah, what you're not allowed to eat. So what is that piece you're not allowed to eat? It's what connects the muscle of the thigh to the bone. So they're like a white.
I think it's like a tendon or a ligament.
I think it's a tendon, or what was the other word you said?
Ligament.
I think that's the word. So that's what gidim mean. But very often in Kabbalah, when you say gidim, you mean veins. So it could mean that or that. Or it could also mean your nervous system. So I think that the word gidim is used for any stringy limb. It's like a string. So there are the blood gidim and there are the nerve gidim. It's like a general word that can be used for very differing systems in the body. So what exactly does he mean here? Very likely he's referring to the blood, to the blood vessels. Like when you say that there are, maybe the most famous example is that it's known that the mitzvot, the 248 mitzvot aseh, are all, they correspond to the 248 limbs, ramach evarim, and the shasta mitzvot lo taseh, the don'ts, the commandments which were forbidden to do, they correspond to the gidim. And there, the gidim means the blood vessels. You know, again, what's a do and a don't? A do, a mitzvah, is what expresses Hashem. Like each one of your limbs expresses a certain aspect of your soul, your ability to see in your eyes, your abilities to hear in your ears, to move in your hands, the whole day. And your blood vessels is what channels, again, it limits, and by limiting your blood, it doesn't spread all over the place, it channels it efficiently. So that's what a don't is. A forbidding, what the Torah forbids you, is like what the Torah is channeling you in a very specific direction. So the doing is like the flow, and the not doing is the barriers that create a funnel for the flow to funnel correctly. That's how it's explained. So that's why the don'ts in the Torah, the isurim, what you're forbidden to do, is manifested in your veins, in the funneling of your blood, of your life. Whereas the do's, what expresses you, is manifested in your limbs. So there, in that allegory, the word gidim is referring to your blood vessels. So again, what exactly is referred to here? I don't know, but I assume that's what it refers to. Atzamot is bones, and tzipornaim is fingernails. Simply what the Alter Rebbe is saying here is that even the most physical, coarse aspects of your body, even your bones and your nails, which are like almost not part of you, you don't even have any sensation in your nails. They're almost dead. Again, like the allegory of a heel, when we said before that our generations are the heel of the Jewish people. So the heel always refers to the limb, which is still part of the body, but has the least sensibility, least sensitiveness. It's like our generation is a very coarse generation. It's called ikvet ad mashiach. So even coarser than that is your fingernails or your hair. Sometimes is another allegory. So what the Alter Rebbe wants to express here is how everything, even your coarsest limbs, even your fingernails and everything comes from, everything's a manifestation of or a development of that very seminal dot. So that's the quotation from the Gemara. In the brackets, he brings a quotation about this from the Etz Chaim from Kabbalah. There it says in Shara Chashmal, that's the chapter in the Arizal's writings, that besod levushim she'adam harishon began Eden shehayu tzipornaim מבחינת moach hatvuna. So there it says that Adam Harishon in the Garden of Eden, he had a shell, like his entire body, his garments. Again, this is also something that we can meditate on a lot, but we'll say just very simply that the concept, I mean, the Torah tells us that the concept of clothing is something that was renewed after the sin. So the way we conceive of clothes, where a person garments himself with something that's not part of him. I take a foreign garment to cover up my skin. And that's a result of the sin. Like the Torah describes it, after Adam and Eve ate from the tree of the dot of knowledge, and they became aware, they were filled with self-awareness, and they became ashamed. And in order to cover up, then Hashem sewed them garments. Again, what exactly happened there is also a debate, but we won't get into it. But it says that before that, then their garments were part of their self. They didn't need like a foreign element to cover them up. They were garmented. So the garments, like the exterior of their body, is called like, what's the example for that? Like a fingernail. So it says they were garmented in nails. Like their entire body had like a shell, just like your fingernail is a garment, which is relative. Again, it's like that even your foreignness is part of your being. Even your garments are part of you. They're not something, they're not simply foreign. They're not actually foreign. Like a shirt is actually foreign to me. A fingernail is like, it's like the foreignness of myself. It's that part of me that is my exterior, but it's not actually foreign to me. That's what a fingernail is representing. So he brings this quotation just to stress that point, that everything, even your sense of foreignness, if we take this as psychological allegory, so we'd say that this is like saying that even the grandchild's sense of foreignness to his parents is also coming from his parents. It's
Rabbi,
also,
I don't understand why you keep using the word foreign. I'm not getting why you're saying foreign.
the idea he wants to convey here simply is that even the coarsest elements of the child are all stemming from the same seminal point. Even your fingernails develop from the very, very same seminal seed. Not only those organs and parts of you that more clearly reflect your parents, even those parts of you which are very, very coarse and detached from you yourself, like your fingernails, are also stemming from the same point. Everything's stemming from the same point.
I understand that. Okay, but why the word foreign?
So again, what he quotes from the Arizal is that the Arizal says that what fingernails are garments. What is that saying? What is that referring to? That a garment, like a shirt, is something completely foreign to a person. What does it mean that fingernail is a garment? It means that it's like your own foreignness. It's not really foreign. A shirt is something that you bring from outside. It's not you. It's actually not you. Your fingernail is what even your sense of foreignness is part of who you are. So it's part of you. That's what it says, that Adam, before the sin, even his exterior, his foreignness was unified with him. There wasn't an actual sense of individuality, of separation. There was a concept of individuality, but it coexisted as part of the unity. It's a little bit.
So you're saying that the foreignness means our individuality, our separateness from Hashem.
But we could even say, again, that's why I said foreignness, because it's not just individuality. It could even be our actual foreignness, like our separate individuality, where we live after the sin of Adam HaRishon. We actually have a sense of being foreign to Hashem. That's our existence. That's why maybe the psychological example is more clear. It's like saying that even your child's separate, like anger towards you or foreignness to you, like sense of detachment from you. So that itself is coming from you. That's also part of you. Not only is your child just a manifestation of who you are, but also your child's foreignness to you is a manifestation of who you are. It's,
Okay.
that's very, very easy to see. That you can, I'll say it very simply. It's like saying your children are doing to you exactly what you did to your parents.
I can get.
That's a very simple way to phrase what I just said.
Okay.
So really, your children's not walking in your path is your children walking your path. That's exactly what they're doing. Because they're doing exactly what you are. So even their foreignness is part of their kinship. It's part of what they're you. Makes sense?
Yeah.
So everything in that's like if I translate the psychological terms, what he's saying there. Again, it's all part of his what he wants to depict, how everything, even the most separate, coarsest elements of the developed child, are all stemming, like it is biologically. Everything's coming, even the fingernails are coming from that seminal seed. I mean, nothing's coming from anything else. So if you translate that psychologically, that's saying that even the lowest, like you'd say that I'd look at the most foreign Jew, like the most distant Jew, well, maybe he's even kilu, like chas v'shalom, but explicitly or externally he's against the Kadosh Baruch. He hates Hashem. He has a lot. He's not only is he indifferent, he's more than indifferent. He's mamish. He's an enemy maybe. So okay, so also that animosity is a godly thing. It's part of Hashem. It's like what Hashem has animosity. Now, before we sinned, so that was clear that our garments were like fingernails. Today, our foreignness seems simply foreign. It just looks like it's completely disconnected. But really, it's all stemming from the same place. So like a tzaddik could come and look at a Rasha and explain how that Rasha's behavior is depicting something in the Shekhinah, is a manifestation of something in the Shekhinah. Like the Rebbe has a sikha, many sikhas like this, very famous sikha. There's a story about Bilga in the Gemara. That in the time of the Romans, she's like a very wicked person. She married a Roman general. It's like marrying a Nazi. She was Jewish, and she went and she was part of the Mityavnim. And not only was she a Mityavenet, she mamash married in to one of the worst Goyim families. And when the Romans came and took over the temple, so she was there. She was there again. She was there on the wrong side of things. She was there on the chaperoning her husband, the German officer. So she's a very bad person. And it says that when she walked into the temple, into the Beis Hamikdash, she took off her shoe and she hit, she with her shoe, she knocked her shoe like derogatorily against the Mizbeach, the big Mizbeach, Hachitzon. And she said, locus, locus. Ad matai ata mechalem amonan shel Yisrael ve'in ata omed lehem bishat tzaratan. That's what the Gemara says. That she called the Mizbeach, she called it a
Wolf.
A wolf. Yeah, locus is a shu'al, a wolf. You wolf. What's a wolf? A wolf is someone who is an animal that like a sly animal that comes around and steals your flock, but that does no good for you. There's no good comes of it. So that's what the Bilga, she said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That you're like a fox. You keep taking the Jews' sacrifices, all the sheep, but you don't. You don't stand up for them when they need you most. So again, the Gemara simply says this as a very, very severe thing that she did. This was a very, very bad person. She got married. She married out to a Nazi officer, and then she comes around to the holiest place of the Jewish people and blasphemy. She blasphemizes the Kadosh Baruch Hu in the temple. So she's a very bad person. That's the pshat there. So the sikha that the Rebbe spoke, and very emotionally, but how you see how a Jew, even the most foreign Jew, again, like the footnail of the footnail here, with no sense of Gottlichkeit, lichoira. But what bothers her? What touches her pinta lip? Yid, what really bothers her after all of her idolatry and after all of her marrying out, and she's Rahmana litzlan. After all that, what's noigea to her is that how come HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't stand up for the Jewish people when they need him most? That's how the Rebbe is. So again, so taking something like that and saying that even the
I say one thing about that.
let's finish the idea. Why did I mention it? That even the most manifested animosity is itself a manifestation of the Shekhinah. You seeing how that itself is an aspect of who you are. Again, like looking at your kids going 180 degrees from you, chas v'shalom, even though that not always chas v'shalom, it could be good. But let's say, and saying that that is mamish me. That's you're just doing, like your kid says, I'll never be like you. Okay, that's very like me to say that. So that's typical of me to say that. That's like what a tzaddik does. He looks at that Jew and she says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the worst. And he says, that's mamish a chelek elok mimal mamish, to say something like that. Because that's like the animosity, the fingernails being part, the garments being part of your body. Yeah, sorry. What were you saying?
I had the schus to hear the Rebbe give this sikha. And he said it when he referred to, he said a Yiddish tachta. We could see in a Yiddish tachta, he was weeping. He was releasing her soul. They say the Rebbe released her soul.
That's I heard later that there, I don't remember if that was just a rumor that went around or that the Rebbe said something. I don't know that there was a certain tikkun. The Rebbe was making some sort of tikkun. So I don't know if that was just like the Hasidim said that, or if it was in the sikha that's printed. It's not mentioned such a thing.
So that's how it was given over. That the Rebbe did that for other people also. That seemed like we're
there are many stories like that. I'll tell a story from the Rav. I don't remember if this was the first time I heard this. I think it's a famous sikha. There's even a muge sikha. Like there's a certain sikha that the Rebbe full-proofed that was based on this discourse. But this is a famous discourse by the Rebbe. So of all of the Rebbe's printed Verbringens, it's a familiar Verbringen, relatively. The Rav mentioned it once in a class. I know maybe people remember it wasn't so long ago. It must have been maybe 10 years ago. And he discussed of how tzaddikim elevate souls. That was the first discussion of the night. And the second part of the class, the Rav gave a discourse about Elvis Presley and Marilyn Monroe. I don't know if anybody remembers this, but there was such a discussion from the Rav about 10 years ago. This was the first, like the beginning of the evening, the Rav discussed how there's such an inyan to take, again, what we're describing here, take like the lowest souls that need a tikkun, and they may be waiting for this tikkun for very, very many generations. Before Mashiach can come, you have to elevate all these souls. And the example he brought was the story that we just said from the Rebbe. And then he explained it, like the Rebbe explains with all of the multitude of ideas. And that's it. And that was the first discussion. Later on that night, the Rav himself, out of nowhere, suddenly started talking about Elvis Presley and Marilyn Monroe. Again, it had nothing to do, as far as I know. I don't know. I mean, I'm not so... I think they both passed away a long time ago. So I don't think it had anything to do with anything that was happening, like simply on the news or anything. Again, I don't know. Maybe it did, but not that I know about. And it was it was in the Yazdim, the class in the Yazdim, if you remember, in Yerushalayim. So everybody was very, very clear to everybody that, and that I did hear from the Rav explicitly something about. So Mikom Makom, this sort of a view is just using this as an example, a more psychological example to depict the physical allegory. He's saying that even your heels or your fingernails are a depiction, a part of yourself. And what he says in the brackets is just that the Arizal Be'emet says that in Gan Eden, before you sinned, so it was also clearly part of yourself. Again, it's like saying that foreignness, this is also something that's explained. What's the bottom line difference between, like, who's right? Your children or you? Your children say, I'll never be like you. And you say, okay, that's like me to say that. So who's right? Who's correct? Right or you? it's a plukta b'mtzias. Who's understanding reality more correctly? I could phrase that differently. What's the difference between how your child is part of you and how it exists outside you? There's a certain element of you that's happening within yourself, and suddenly it's also happening outside of you. But there's a difference. Outside, it's like tzimtzum kipshuto. There's something, the animosity is real. It's actualized animosity. Within you, it's just like a concept of animosity. It's an element. It's an Indian. It's not real. It's not that it's not real. It's just a side of yourself. And so foreignness within you isn't foreign at all, even though it's really foreignness. The foreignness exists within you, but even though it exists within you, it's part of yourself. And when it appears outside, this is what happens in creation. So it's as if it became real foreignness. Now, there you have to reveal that chas v'shalom, the tzimtzum is not kipshuta. It's not really kipshuta. But there's a sensation of it being kipshuta. That's like the example the Arizal says, that the foreignness before sin only existed as part of yourself. That's what a nail is. Your fingernail is what a garment, there's a garment, there's foreignness, exterior, but it's also part of the interior. But it's really an exterior. That's a fingernail. Now, today, the garment is kilu mamish, a garment. It's like a cut off fingernail. Like you cut off the fingernail, so now it's mamish, it's dead. It's not part of yourself anymore. So, but the tzimtzum is not kipshuto. So that's just, again, to explain the brackets here, what the allegory of saying that Adam Arishon's garments were fingernails, were nails. It's saying that before the sin, also the exterior existed, but it's like it says in Kabbalah about bad. The bad, the evil, the klipa, before the sin, it existed under the worlds. What does it mean they existed under the worlds? Under was like saying that it's like a concept. It's a hava amina. It could be that within Hashem there is such a thing as something not being Hashem. There's such an idea, such a concept of not being Hashem within Hashem. Now that concept actualizing is our reality. But again, all it is a concept of Hashem. It's all part of Hashem. But it's that part of Hashem that within Him, there's like you could sit and think that there could be part of me that's not me. Okay, so that exists as part of you. That concept exists as part of you. Now, if it would jump up and bite you, that would be phenomenal. That's what Hashem did in the creation of heavens and earth. He took what was a hava. I mean, where does it say this in the Torah explicitly? This idea we're explaining. It says this about Haman. Haman is like the archetype of evil. Haman Agagi, Amalek. So Chazal ask in Masechet Megillah. There's a portion in the Masechet there that Megillah is a story that happened after the giving of the Torah. But late milta de logam is beoraita. There's nothing that doesn't stem from the Torah, like we're explaining here. Everything stems from the Torah. So Chazal ask about everything in the story of Purim. Where do we find this in the Torah? Mordechai ma Torah minayin. Where's Mordechai in the Torah? Where's Esther in the Torah? And where's Haman in the Torah? Each character, Chazal find a verse, which is where this character appears in the Torah. Even though, again, the Torah obviously was written thousands of years before Purim. But everything comes from the Torah. Now, what's the origin of Haman? What do Chazal say? Haman mina Torah minayin. Which verse is the origin of Haman in the Torah? So they say Haman stems from the verse Hamin ha'etz. In the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Chava eat from the tree of knowledge, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he asks Adam, tell me, have you eaten from the tree that I told you not to eat from? And the verse in Hebrew is Hamina etz asher amarti lecha shelo tochal mimenu achalta. Hamina etz, have you eaten from that tree? So the word for have you from the tree is Hamin, and that's what Chazal say. That's Haman, same letters. Haman, Hamin is the same letters. And Chazal say that this is the origin of Haman. So Haman is actualized evil. What's the origin of actualized evil? It's the concept of evil. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu can conceptualize evil. Hamina. Maybe you'll do what I said not to. But again, within Hashem, originally it only exists. The separation is a concept, part of unity. Part of Hashem's unity, infinite unity, is that also separation exists. But it's only a concept. Like Hamina etz. Like Hashem asks Adam HaRishon. It's a suggestion. Could this be? Could there be something other than me? But if that suggestion jumps up and bites you, it becomes a thing. So that's Haman, Mamash. So Haman in reality is, again, he originates. He's a manifestation of the Hava Amina, the suggestion of there being evil in the world. If that makes sense to everybody. So that's another example for what it says here in the brackets, that the distant Jew, the animosity, the fingernails also are only part of the unity. Again, they also stem from the same place as the highest souls. And also now, truly, they're part of the unity of the body. Even though, again, after the sin, they could appear like something that jumps up and bites you from outside. Something that's actually, but atzimtzum lo kepshuto. So we managed to phrase that to depict the 2 points that he says here right after the brackets. So now that I see it this way, I think that's also probably what he's trying to say. That also, again, how did he say it inside? He said 2 things. Also, every soul stems from the same seminal point. And also that after it's stemmed, it's still united. Really, it's still part of the body. It's still connected. Just like that baby, his fingernails are still connected. And in the brackets, he says that before we sinned, then even the distant parts were clearly connected like fingernails. And today that we've sinned, the connection of the fingernails isn't clear. Like the distance, the animosity seems actual, it seems like actual animosity. Like your child views his animosity as actual animosity. But really, it's just you. Just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just like you look at your child and he says to you, I'll never be like you. And you think, oh, great, that is me. That very thing is being me. So it's, again, both things are true. That's his allegory here, that a fingernail is something it's a connected disconnection. And even that most distant portion of the baby is also stemming from the same point and also still connected. Truly, it's still connected. It's not really separated. Even the manifested separation is really a manifestation of an element of the unity. The element of separation, which was included in the unity. So everything is stemming from the same point and is still part of the same point. This is all to explain how all the Jewish souls are all chelek elokam imam mamash. Okay, so we hervachnu, we gained another a little bit more of depth in our understanding because we took the time to explain the brackets I wasn't meaning on explaining. So that's that. So let's read it from inside and translate it. I don't know exactly. I don't remember where do we get to exactly. You remember?
That's what we got up to. You're up to right after the brackets. Kaka mamish kaviyachol.
Okay, so from right after the brackets, he starts corresponding, paralleling the allegory he just finished to the concept he wants to depict. So just like we explained in the mashal, from the seminal seed developing into a baby and the fingernails, how everything's part of one thing. Same thing, kacha mamash kivyachol, very precisely that way. Beshorish, kol nefesh ruach neshama, in the root of every nefesh ruach neshama, every layer of every soul, shel klalut Israel, of every single person of the Jewish people, lemala, which all stem again from the same root. In their deterioration, or again in the experience of the womb, of going through the process of creation through the four worlds of Atzilut, B'rei, Yetzirah, Asiyah. Mi chokhmato itbarach, from again the seminal origin is the mind, the chokhmah of Atzilut. Kedichtiv kulam b'chokhmah asit, as it says that we're all a doing of chokhmah. Nitavu mimeno, so in that process of creation, of manifestation of every soul, nitavu, it came about the nefesh ruach neshama, the singular souls, shalamei haaretz and pchutei haaretz, of even the lowest Jew. His godly soul is also stemming, again, so much so that it could be that his appearance of Hashem, his faith, manifests. Again, his Jewish soul is like, it appears in the most, like the Rebbe said about that woman, Bilga, that this is her faith in Hashem. That's her godly soul. And where does it appear? It appears in the coarsest form. It's not her animal soul. Again, her animal soul is Be'emet Yetzer Hara. Also, the tzaddik doesn't want to say that she's a tzaddik, that she's righteous. No, her Yetzer Hara is Yetzer Hara. But you can see how her godly soul manifests as in the lowest form. It's still completely godly. So that comes from this process of coarsening, of how the godly soul went through all the worlds, as he depicts it here. Ve'im kol zeh, and in addition, like we just said, odena kshurot u'miyuchadot b'yichud nifla ve'atzum b'mautan ve'atzumtan harishon. And not only are they all stemming from the same point, they're also still connected in a wonderful unity, immense and wonderful unity in their original essence, which is the Chokhmah Ilah, Chokhmah Datzilut, where they stem from in the Father's highest traits, highest levels. Why? Now here he says something that we'll have to maybe elaborate about a little bit more. This is a very important concept, obviously, in Chassidus. I think it's the only place that I know about in the Tanya and Bichal and Chabad where this is explained. Because still, where do you see this? That in order to see the connection, the today's connection of the manifested garment, of the manifested animosity, how it's still connected. So you see that through the tzaddikim of the generation. Like technically, like saying that the fingernail is connected to the mind through the finger, through the hand, through the arm, through the shoulder, all the way up to the mind. So the animosity, if you just look at it as it is, it seems really detached. But also it's stemming from the same point, and it's still connected, but it's still connected through the process of coarsening. And therefore its connection is revealed and apparent, like a tzaddik needs to come around and see it that way, view it that way. And like saying that you can see how your child is just like your mother. It's connecting you. Again, not just your child's animosity is mamish connected to its root. So we'll have to explain this a little bit more. That's what he says here. So the nikah, the vitality of that soul is still suckling from the nefesh ruach neshama, from the souls of the tzaddikim and chachamim, who are the heads of the generation, Rashei Bnei Israel. So the fingernail is still connected through the mind to the Father. Shebedoram, also very important. Here, it's specifically the tzaddikim that live in this body of the generation, like in this living generation. So every soul is connected to all the tzaddikim in the past generations, also to Hashem, through the head of that generation.
Rabbi, what are you saying? The tzaddikim, do they have to do something about this, or?
But they have to. They are.
They are? How?
Okay, so this will still need to explain. But this is what a tzaddik is. A tzaddik is like, again, it's like saying, does the mind do anything to connect the fingernail? It just is that way. It's connected. It's physically connected with the nervous system. It's also psychologically connected as being part of yourself. So the selfness of the mind dwells everywhere, also on the fingernails. And the fingernails connection.
And so for the tzaddik, this kind of group experience?
Again, your soul, we'd say, like yourself, your expression of self, reaches your fingernails through your mind. That would be like the technical expression.
And the tzaddikim, and so you're saying, so to the tzaddikim, what?
Tzaddik is relatively like the mind is intermediating between your soul, yourself, and your hand.
Okay.
Do something that expresses yourself, your soul. So much so that your hand becomes a chariot to yourself, to you. And what enables that to happen? Your mind. Your mind is what enables your soul to manifest in your hand. It's like it is physically. Your mind, you project or leads your body. Your soul, your awareness appears in your mind, and through there manifests in all your limbs. So that's, again, so if the tzaddik is the mind, and the simple Jew is the finger or the fingernail, so then the tzaddik, again, the tzaddik is not, he's not the soul here. He's the mind, like the manifested mind. And the soul, that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu, appears in the finger through the mind. Like the tzaddik and the simple Jew are two different parts of the body. And Hashem is the soul in the allegory. The soul enters the lower parts of the body through the higher parts of the body. That's what a tzaddik is. And we need to explain that. So, but we summed up well today how every soul is stemming from the same place and is also still part of the same unit. That was the main point we managed today through those brackets. So, Bezrat Hashem.